Who's next?
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm back again with another episode of the If Factor Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Robinson, and today we have someone special. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Olivia Atkin. I founded the business Achieving Success LLC. I also host the podcast Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin, and I do consulting and speaking.
So with that, how are you doing mentally, physically, and emotionally?
So mentally, I think starting a business, and my business at this point is a little over a year old, it can be draining sometimes, especially when it is remote all the time. All my clients are from all over the world. So I am different time zone, different timelines, and it's remote, and I'm a people person, but I love it. You just have to kind of know yourself. I always say that to people. As long as you are knowing when you're getting drained or need to stand up, you're good. Right now, it's an interesting time in my life too, because I'm getting prepared to move to Alaska for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So when you talk about mental, like right before you and I sat down, I was confirming the logistics of like traveling to move there because we will be driving. So like there's that aspect, and we were in the midst of solidifying a house out there. So it's that balance act of sometimes it's stressful, but like checking in again on yourself and going, okay, is this a positive stress or what's going on? But mentally, great overall. Can't complain.
Good. That's good. That's good. And congrats to moving to Alaska. It's going to be very interesting. I had a cousin that lived out there for a couple of years.
It is going to be interesting because I was born in the South in summer. So, very warm weather. I grew up in the North. Yeah, grew up in the Northeast. So I'm used to the cold. But there's all those stereotypical ideas of what Alaska is. Luckily, we are moving to Juneau, Alaska, because my boyfriend is in the Coast Guard there and he will be stationed there. So I had the ideas of like negative 20 degrees. I don't do that in general. Like I am that person that wears a sweatshirt in 80-degree weather. So like this is really going to be a journey, but really mimics for the most part the weather in Seattle or the Northeast. So luckily, kind of debunking some of those myths along the way that I thought. But yeah, it's gonna be an experience for sure.
It's going to be good for you. So I would say, what led you to major in business management and a minor in sports studies, man? How did you even compare those two?
So for me, I grew up as an athlete. At 9 years old, I was training for the Junior Olympics in swimming. I was competing with the 15 to 18 age group and winning. However, at 9 years old, I was diagnosed with epilepsy and a rare form. So at that point, even though my community rallied around me and my family rallied around me to try to figure out a way to stay swimming, within a year, that was no longer really possible. So my sport ended, it got taken away from me. It wasn't by choice. However, I kind of, my seizures, I stopped having them, which technically people say they're seizure free, but it's hard to like tell people what that means or how to show it. So I always had this drive for sports, and luckily my elementary school gym teacher, who became very close with my family because my sisters also did sports, and my sisters had actually gotten one of them badly injured in her sport. And so she was taken out basically from doing gym class for a year. So he really like helped through that process. And he transitioned to my high school, my freshman year of high school. And he said to me, listen, why don't you come manage the wrestling team? He was going to be the coach. And he's like, it's a way for you to get back in sports without obviously wrestling, but kind of see a different aspect of it and stay involved. By the time I graduated high school, I was managing not just the wrestling team, but baseball, football, and men's lacrosse.
Wow.
Eh, Yes, I loved it. The guys were great. We really created this bond. And
Mhm.
I really did see a lot of aspects. The when you talk about wrestling, the manager has to take care of the mats and make sure, no guy gets sick from anything or ringworm or anything like that. You gotta do stats. You gotta learn a lot. And same with any of the other sports. Going into my freshman year of college, they saw all the different things I'd done as a manager and then as an athlete myself. And I went to Quinnipiac University, which is a D1 athletics program, and they were looking for a hockey manager for the men's and women's team. So the admissions office ended up sending my resume over to the athletics department to the team, and they reached out to me on if I would be interested in managing. So I ended up managing that team.
Mhm.
Always knew I wanted to do business, always knew from the time I started managing athletes that that's kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it be in the agent capacity for a team, what might look like, but I knew that's where I wanted to be. And I knew though that especially in sports, you really needed to be well-rounded, and it was hard to get your foot in the door. So for me, I had the sports background, I had the business. How can I mesh that together? I actually even went a step farther and got a minor in law. So I understood contracts, I understood all these moving pieces, and I ended up my sophomore into junior year getting an internship with the New York Football Giants, where I ended up staying and working with the team for 6 seasons. And through that, I got to manage lots of athletes. To this day, some of my best friends are the rookies from my rookie seasons and the athletes that I worked with at the Giants. I work with athletes now in all sports to this day. I say they joke with me no matter how far out from actually working every day in sports that I'll never really get away from it because they're just going to keep knocking.
Uh, that's amazing though, because you have built up that track record of like, hey, you know what? She's trustworthy. She good at her job and she loves what she do. And I feel like if you love what you do, you basically ain't gonna work a day in your life, but also people are gonna remember that and say, you know what? I need to work with her. I need to work with Olivia, man. I
And
like her.
it's you touched upon something I think is so important is the trustworthiness. And I think sometimes so many individuals get stuck in the grind of just being like, okay, I need to make this connection. And like if I have so many people myself, I'll say that reach out to me, oh, you worked at the Giants. Can you send my resume? Can you get me that job? But at the end of the day, the second you let your work speak for you and you build those relationships out where it's like, okay, I know she's not going to tell my business to someone else, or I know how quickly she's going to deliver, whatever it might be, it spreads organically. So sometimes you got to take the pressure off yourself,
Mhm.
especially in working in the sports environment, and just say, I'm going to trust the quality of work I give out, the kindness, and just making sure you focus on that.
You're right about that. So I say, what is your it factor? Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do to help others kind of make their life easier, share information that they might not have, whether it's consulting, speaking, still working with some of my athletes. It's like, how can I get you the result you're looking for? How can I help you on that journey? And how can I save you time by giving you information that you didn't already have? But also, I think sometimes it's the fact that I am not scared to ask you the hard questions.
Hmm.
One of the things my athletes used to always tell me is I would push back with them so hard. Like they tell me, okay, I want to do, I'll use one of my clients as an example. I want to start this clothing line. And I was like, okay, but when are you going to have time for that?
Mm,
Oh, well, in off season, I'm like, okay, but you have these obligations. So like realistically, when are you gonna be able to research this and that and know the expenses for this? And I kept being like, why? What's the why here? How are you gonna do it? And until you could get me that answer, you shouldn't be moving forward with this project because it's time and money you're spending. So I think part of it is, even if I think it's a great idea,
mhm,
I'm going to just keep pushing back with you, not out of I don't believe in you or I don't think this is going to work, but let's make sure you could stand tall in the information and your beliefs to actually make it happen.
I agree with that too. I would say that I feel as though people always ask me about podcasting or being an author or anything. Oh, being a husband now that I'm a husband. Hey, how you do? And I'm like, hey, just put the research, put the work in, man. Like, take time though. Don't rush into these things. See if you can be consistent in what you're already doing before you try to make this move up here. So with that, I would say, how is it being a author? What led you to be an author? And did you always want to be an author? Because I literally wanted to be an author as a little boy. I'm like, write my own book one of these days. So,
So that's a great question because it is something that truly came from not saying no to opportunities.
mhm,
And for me, once I was diagnosed with epilepsy, something that takes you, Jeremy, 2 hours to learn or read can take me 4 to 6.
mm,
So reading and doing math, certain things like that, where you learn your fundamentals at a very young age, there's gaps in my brain and just how it works. So it was nothing that was ever truly enjoyable or that I looked forward to because it was such a struggle for me. I did read every textbook and every book that my teachers ever, even in college, assigned to me. So it wasn't something where I was like, I want to do this, just because no matter how many times I practiced, it was difficult. It took me so long to get through and try to obtain that information. However, when I was actually approached to write my book, and my book is more of that workbook, hands-on. You could pick it up and really go from it covers everything from resumes and cover letters with templates to different professional organizations that are out there, interview tips, practice networking, things like that. I wanted the individual to be able to pick it up and use it for whatever they needed, wherever they were in life.
mm,
And I was asked to write this book mainly because people were seeing me going out and talking. They saw at this point when I got asked to write the book, I had a degree or certification in every business area. So not only can I, talk about career development and what that is like, I also had practiced it in many different aspects.
yeah, okay.
So, and I was actually also teaching a course on career development at my alma mater, Quinnipiac University, when they approached me.
Mm,
And again, it comes to having the experiences in your past, not saying no to opportunities. And when that one came knocking, because of all the other things I'd done in the past,
mhm,
and my own experiences with reading textbooks, reading different books, I really sat down and had a conversation with them. Didn't say no right away. I said, let's have a meeting.
mhm,
And then my second question was, how can we make it affordable for everyone? Because, of course, in my head, I'm going, books can be expensive, especially if it's a book you want as a classroom resource, whether that's in a high school, college level,
mhm.
um, or for anyone at home to use. And can I write it the way I want to?
Right.
And those 2 questions were a yes. And so the big thing for me too was how can I make it understandable to anyone?
Mm,
And so when I looked back on the experience, it was something where it was so rewarding, and it still is so rewarding to this day when someone comes to me and is like, "Oh my God, I used your book to help me get my job. I got an email like that today." And I'm like, "Yes, it was helpful."
mhm,
But it's also something I never thought I would get the opportunity to do or want to do, which I think sometimes makes it even more rewarding when it's an unexpected gift you get to give to someone.
Definitely, definitely. I commend you for that because me being what two-time author. Once I seen that and me looking at your stuff, I like anytime I see an author and I get to interview one, I definitely be like, look, we're on the same page. So I definitely commend you for that because growing up, I would have never thought I wanted to write a book, but I would never know the first phases of how I would do it. And when I wrote the first one in undergrad, and then the next one, I think, 2 years ago, I was just like, wow, I can't believe I wrote a book and you like it, really? So I commend you for that. So I would say, how was it being a TEDx speaker? You big time, you famous. I just want you to know that. You famous. I only know two. You the second.
So, that again
Mhm.
is an experience I never thought I would have, especially so young into my business career. When I say my business career, I mean starting my own business. I launched Achieving Success LLC November 1st, 2022. I was on the TEDx stage and giving my TEDx talk August 19th, 2023. So less than 1 year from starting my business, I was on the TEDx stage. I Again, being a business person, I've listened to TEDx talks from the moment I was in high school and my teacher will put it on the screen. I've listened to so many and I know it's such a amazing stage to be on and it's held to such a standard that I was always like, that'd be really cool. But I never thought it was really attainable.
Mhm.
And it was something that kind of like the book, they came to me. They had heard my podcast, they had heard me talk, and they were generating a TEDx around the topic of resiliency, technology, embracing all these different things. And they had a spot to fill, and they really liked my journey, how I talked, all these different things. And they asked me if I'd be willing to do it. Um, and I was like, sure, we could go down this process and see where it leads. Again, at first, I was like, I'll go through the process. It doesn't guarantee anything. We'll see where it goes. And 6 weeks prior to the TEDx, so the end of June, they called me on a Friday night and they were like, so you have the green light. So if you accept, August 19th, will you be in Dallas to give this talk? And I was like, yes, let's
I do
go.
that.
But it is something too that was such a journey,
Mhm.
not just because it is a TEDx stage. The other individuals that were on that stage that same day I was, we created such a tight knit group. I actually text them all, like most of them, almost uh every other week, I would say. On average, our group has just become so close that it was even more rewarding in that aspect. It's something like athletics when you go in a college or pro level,
Mhm.
where only the people, and you could even say this about the military as well, for sure, no, the people who've gone through that specific experience with you will know what it was like. It
Mhm.
also so much challenges the way you do speak. A podcast like this, we're having a conversation. When I typically go and give talks, I engage with the audience. I'm giving them kind of as if I was teaching assignments as we're going through the lecture, going back and forth, answering questions. On a TEDx stage, you can't do that. You have to engage with the audience without talking with the audience. You have to get your point across in a very shortened time because there's a time constraint. So there was all these things that really challenged me on making sure I got my point across, was able to leave people thinking, being able to connect with anyone listening that was different than the other talks given. And I just love it because it is something too that specific talk I'm so proud of because I spent so much energy, time and focus practicing every little moment. The topics defeating your biggest enemy, you, how we can all get in our own ways during moments of opportunity or struggle. And I knew that even down to the little things when I was saying the feeding, right? That's a negative connotation to people. Sometimes you're either the victor or you're losing when you talk about deficient. But I got into a power pose. So even your mind would go, okay, that could be looked at as a negative term. However, it's a power pose. So you automatically think positively. And those are some of the little nuances that really installed in my brain and made me look at talks differently too.
Got you. And again, commend you for that because that's amazing. Look, we almost out of time, man. I hate that thing. I dislike it. But I would say, before we do close, I just got a few more questions. I would say, what's something you would like to see change in the world?
I think one thing that I would love to see changed in the world is people's ability to have empathy and grace
Mm,
towards others and themselves.
yeah.
I've gone through this recently where I've seen multiple people take a situation and instead of just standing tall and going, okay, I handled this great, or this is what it is, I have to also look at it from another person's perspective. And even if I think I'm right, I kind of have to look at it and see how they might feel that I hurt them,
Mhm.
or that I might not be reading the room right. And, there is that piece I'm missing. And I think it's so important sometimes that no matter how we're feeling, we have to not just give ourselves grace if we're self-doubting, but we have to give others grace and knowing that they might have a reason for saying what they said. It might not come across correctly, but they're also are bringing life experiences to the table for them to perceive it this way. Even though you might have felt like you didn't hurt that individual and that you're in the right, maybe there's other things going on that you can meet in the middle. And I think we all could do that more and better.
Indeed. I would say that I always have a quote up here from Inky Johnson. It says, always be willing to be stronger than your strongest excuse. Extend the grace to others that you display to yourself. And I
Mm.
say that all the time because a lot of times we sit there and, it's easy to blame somebody else. Oh, that. But as I sit back and reflect, I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. All right, cool. All right, let's see how we can move along with this. Or let me not always take a side. So definitely I would thank you for this talk today because it was amazing. I would say, tell us about how you got into your podcast and achieving success and like what have been some memorable moments.
Oh, so this is such a great question. So for me, I got into my podcast actually from my book.
Okay.
The my project manager and the publishing company, Kendall Hunt Publishing, when it released July 1st, 2022, we had like a wrap up Zoom call, and they were just like, Olivia, with all your experiences and background and different stories and different journeys and the way you could connect with people, have you ever thought of podcasting? And up until that day, it never crossed my mind. Again, it was kind of like the book. I didn't think it was something
Uh-huh.
that was like my fit or anything like that, and they really started to make me think about it. And fast forward to November 1st, 2022, after diving into what a podcast would look like, how I would like to serve the community through a podcast, it was really this idea of achieving success. No matter the industry I was in, no matter the age of individuals I talked to, this underlying idea of what society is putting us around the success marks or how you grow within a job or a company or all these things, when you start talking about people about their own journeys, it's nothing like you're kind of trained, right? You go to high school, you go to college, you'll get that job, you'll make six figures, you could become a manager, all these things. That's not true. Um,
It
right.
sounds good. It
And
sounds
and it's not that easy. It's not just checking boxes. And so I really decided to, okay, let's, you know, tear that blind back. Let's, raise the curtain on and really dive into this conversation that's needed. And so that's what I decided the podcast should be about. So it brings on We release once a week on Tuesdays, and it brings on celebrities, current or former pro athletes, entrepreneurs, and employees from all walks of life, all over the world, to talk about what success means and looks like to them, both personally and professionally, and their journey of getting there. Sometimes we talk about business tips or tricks, or what it's like being a pharmacist.
Mhm.
Sometimes we talk about that, the athletics journey with my athletes, but then how that could play a role mentally. Or, we've talked about mass shootings. I had a guest on my podcast that was a victim of the Las Vegas mass shooting and ended up saving hundreds of people's lives that day. And so we talk about the whole realm and how that affects who we are shaped to be and our journey throughout life, and that it's okay to change. And I think the most unexpected thing I've received from it was the quickness of growth and people really connecting to the show, even if they, was never in the military, was never a athlete, but the topics align and are able to connect to, and just how open and transparent and comfortable my guests get. They I've had guests on the show that say on air they've never talked about the things they've talked about on the show. So I think that's some of the rewarding and unexpected things when they throw one of those out there and you're like, wait, you've never felt comfortable to share this and you're about to share with everyone. So it's an amazing journey.
Got you. And I like that. Do you have any questions for me?
So for you, throughout writing books and doing podcasts and being an athlete yourself, what has been the most rewarding part and the thing that has kept with you throughout all your years that you look back and you're like, I'm so happy I took this away from this experience?
The most rewarding part is people saying yes and people saying no to certain situations, especially podcasting has taught me that. Being an engineer has taught me that. Playing football, I would say being a husband has taught me that. But I say I can tell you straightforwardly, it's crazy how so many people say yes and say, "Yeah, I'll do that, man." They come on the podcast and you have a great time and you make great connections and you look back and say, "I would have never thought I would be having a conversation with somebody that played in the NFL and I'm nowhere near in the NFL. Ain't never worked, ain't never been had nowhere, I ain't nowhere close to it. But I can talk to them and have a conversation and get them to be honest and open to me. I would have never thought it happened. And also just talking to the common working day people, man, it's amazing to see all the amazing things the people that come on my show doing. And I just be glad that I'm able to do it every day and even meet people like yourself. I would have never met you if I have not met Marcus. So definitely thankful for that. And when you meet people, it's like, man, you know what? I'm doing the right thing. I like doing this, you know. So definitely I would say that I have learned that even though you may get that no or someone may try to shut the door on you, it's another door coming. You're gonna be fine. You know, I think you just have to keep going and believe. I even got to go speak to my college class tomorrow. Got to speak to go to the university. It's the first time since COVID, and I glad I get to see them in person. And the first thing I'm gonna tell them is, "Hey, how you doing? Like, what do you want to do after college?" Because I did not get asked that question when I was in college, and just really pick their brains and be more of a speaker of not from, "Hey, this is what I did and this how you do it." It's more of, "Hey, what do you want to do? And then what do you need me to do to help you get it done?" You know, so I would say I'm learning that from podcasting and all the other areas in my life.
And what is something that, if you could do or make an impact on someone through the podcast and your journey, what would that impact be?
My impact will be that you can do anything you put your mind to. I would have never thought I would be podcasting, you know, and today to be doing it for what 5 years now and had on so many successful people and talk to some people that you never think you'll talk to. Is that you know you can do anything you put your mind to and just keep doing it. And no matter how hard it gets, just keep going. Because it's an easier side to it, you know. So definitely I would say if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's how I feel. Maybe not podcasting, but if I can do it, you can do anything you're trying to do. So definitely, I would say that. But thank you
It's,
so much, Olivia, man.
of course, thank you for having me on.
Mhm. Definitely, we got to connect again. Definitely. When are you moving to Alaska? Exactly.
I am moving to Alaska. Well, we're road tripping it. So we
Okay.
leave
Cool.
in June
Okay.
and we'll get there in May. Or not.
Gotcha.
Time does not work backwards. We go in June and we get there by the end of June. So beginning of July.
Yeah, so this episode to come out is my season 6. I'm in season 5 now, but we'll definitely be in talks, and just let me know if you need anything.
Will do. And again, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, indeed. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.